Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalam ala Imam al-Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Believing brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this another of our sittings. Today we shall explain Hadith 34 from the fourth Hadith of Imam Nawawi. I shall read for you the Hadith in Arabic, then in English, and then I will give you the biography of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Sahaba who narrated it to us. Bismillah. An Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. رواه Muslim. On the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah, may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon him, saying, whoever of you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand, and if he is not able to do so, then with his tongue, and if he is not able to do so, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. It was related by Muslim. Who was Abu Sa'id al-Khudri? I'll give you a short biography of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri was a famous Sahaba, and he was a young Sahaba from the Khazraj tribe of Medina. So he was of the Ansar. He was too young to fight at the Battle of Uhud. So he, along with Ibn Omar, was turned away by the Prophet. And the Prophet didn't allow him to fight at the Battle of Uhud because of his young age. It's not the sunnah to take someone to the battlefield who is younger than 15 years old. After the Battle of Uhud, he followed the Prophet on the other campaigns in battle. He was a prolific narrator of Hadith. He narrated 1,170 Hadith, this making him the seventh most prolific narrator of Hadith. I said the Battle of Uhud, not Badr. Should I repeat what I said from the beginning? Abu Sa'id al-Khudri was a famous Sahaba from the tribe of Al-Khazraj. He was of the Ansars. He was too young to fight at the Battle of Uhud, so he, along with Ibn Omar, were turned away by the Prophet because they were too young to fight at the Battle of Uhud. He was a prolific narrator of Hadith. He narrated 1,170 Hadiths, making him the seventh and most prolific narrator of Hadiths. For the person taking notes, the top 7 narrators of Hadith. The person taking notes, the top 7 narrators of Hadith. The first narrator, the person taking notes, made the chapter the top 7 narrators of Hadith. The first is Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. He narrated 5,374 Hadith. That's the amount of Hadith Abu Hurairah narrated, and he is the top. He died 59 AH. The second top narrator of Hadith was Ibn Omar. Ibn Omar narrated 2,630 Hadith. As for Ibn Omar, he died 74 AH. Ibn Omar, he died 74 AH. He is the second Sahaba in narrating Hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The third is Anas ibn Malik. The third is Anas ibn Malik, and he narrated 2,286 Hadith. The third is Anas ibn Malik. He narrated 2,286 Hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anas ibn Malik died 93 AH. Because of his long life, people said he met Abu Hanifa. Because of his long life, some scholars said he met Abu Hanifa. So this would make Abu Hanifa a tabi'i. The fourth narrator is Aisha radiallahu anha. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrated 2210 hadith. Aisha herself died 57 AH. Aisha died 57 AH and she was 65 years old. The fifth is Abdullah ibn Abbas. The hadith, he narrated 1660 hadith. Abdullah ibn Abbas himself died 68 AH. Abdullah ibn Abbas died 68 AH. The sixth is Jabir ibn Abdullah. Jabir ibn Abdullah is the sixth hadith narrator. The most prolific hadith narrator is Jabir ibn Abdullah. He narrated 1540 hadith. The seventh most prolific narrator of hadith is Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he narrated 1170 hadith, making him the seventh most prolific narrator of hadith. I will stop here in regards to the narrators of hadith. We need to put aside a separate sitting to discuss the Sahabas who narrated most hadith. We stop here because we are speaking about Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The hadith we are about to discuss was narrated to us by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri was a famous Sahaba from the tribe of Khazraj in Medina, so he was of the Ansars. He was too young to participate in the Battle of Uhud because he was younger than 15, so the Prophet turned him away along with Ibn Umar. However, he participated in the other battles that came after the Battle of Uhud alongside the Prophet. He was a prolific narrator of hadith. He narrated 1170 hadith, making him the seventh most prolific narrators of hadith. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he died 64 AH in Medina. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he died 64 AH in Medina. The hadith he narrated says, "Whosoever of you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand. And if he is not able to do so, because he doesn't have the power to change it with his hand, then let him speak out against it with his tongue. And if he's not able to do so, because maybe if he speaks he might be killed, then let him hate it in his heart, and that is the weakest level of Iman. Therefore, if you see the haram and you do not hate it in your heart, you are not a Muslim." That is the sharh for the hadith. This hadith which I have just related unto you is telling you the importance of enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. This hadith which I have just read for you, found in Muslim, reported by Muslim, is telling the Ummah the importance of enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. So Allah Ta'ala said in Surah 3:104, "Let there be a party from among you who rise up, inviting the people to Al-Khair." Surah 3:104. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there arise out of you a group of people inviting to all that which is good, Al-Khair, enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. These will be the successful ones. So this ayah tells you that to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is a religious duty. It's a religious duty to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Whenever you abandon this duty to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, you will be cursed by Allah. So Allah told us that the Jews and the Christians were cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus. Ma'idah 78. Ma'idah 78 to 79. Allah told us that the Jews and the Christians were cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus because they failed to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. So Allah said, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُدَ وَعِيسَى مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. Those among the children of Israel, who disbelieved were cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus, the son of Mary. That was because they disobeyed Allah and the messenger and were transgressing beyond bounds. They used to not forbid one another from the munkar. The word munkar means the sin. The Arabic word munkar means a sin. So Allah is telling you why they were cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus. They used not to forbid one another from the munkar, which they committed. Vile indeed was what they used to do. So Allah said they were cursed at the tongue of David and Jesus because they forbid each other from dabbling in the munkar. The word munkar means the haram. Ma'idah 63. In Ma'idah 63, Allah said, why do not the rabbis and the religious learned men, the scholars from among them, forbid them from uttering sinful words and from eating illegal things? Evil indeed is that which they have been performing. So Allah is asking a question. Your Jewish rabbis and your scholars from your religion, why don't they forbid you from uttering sinful words and from eating haram? Don't you know when you eat haram, your dua is not accepted? It's thrown back in your face like a dirty rag. Your dua will not be accepted. You, the Jews, you utter sinful words. You say Allah is poor, but you are rich. Don't you say that? Allah is poor and you are rich. You insult Allah and you insult the prophets of Allah. You utter words of blasphemy. Blasphemy is to insult Allah or a prophet. Why your Jewish rabbis don't stop you from uttering sinful words? Why your Jewish rabbis and your learned men, your scholars, don't prevent you from eating haram? Don't you know when you do haram, your dua will be rejected, it won't be accepted? So this is the question Allah is asking the Jews in Surah Ma'idah verse 63. And you continue to utter sinful words. Don't you say Jesus was a bastard child and Mary was a prostitute? Your words are toxic. Your words are evil. So why the Jewish rabbis don't prevent you from calling Jesus a bastard child? You even sing on YouTube. There's a video of you on YouTube singing Jesus was a bastard child. Your words are toxic. Your words are evil. So Allah is saying in the Quran, why your Jewish rabbis and your learned men do not tell you to stop uttering sinful words, words of kufr, shirk and blasphemy. So to enjoin the right and forbid the munkar, the sin, is a religious duty, a religious obligation. And those who fall short in this obligation expose themselves to the anger of Allah, the wrath of Allah, and the divine punishment of Allah. I repeat, to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is a religious duty, an obligation, which is incumbent on the Ummah. And those who fall short in this obligation expose themselves to the anger of Allah, the wrath of Allah, and the divine punishment of Allah. So when Allah's punishment comes, it will envelope everyone because they fail to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Surah 7, 165. Allah spoke about this in Surah 7, 165. So when they forgot the remindings that had been given to them, we rescued those who forbade evil, but we seized those who did wrong with a severe torment because they used to rebel against Allah's commandment. They used to disobey Allah. So look at the ayah in front of you. Who Allah said He rescued when the disaster came? Allah said He rescued the ones who used to forbid the evil. So when you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, it means that when the punishment of Allah comes, you won't be included in the punishment because you did your duty. What is the duty you fulfilled? You enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. So Allah said, when I come with my natural disaster to destroy the wayward, I shall save the ones who used to forbid the evil. But if you did not forbid the evil, when the punishment of Allah comes, it will envelope everyone. Surah 8 verse 25. Surah 8 verse 25. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Surah 8 verse 25. And fear the fitna, an affliction, a tribulation, which affects not in particular only those of you who do wrong, but it may afflict all the good and the bad people, and know that Allah is severe in punishment. The tafsir of this ayah is that when Allah's natural disaster comes, it will affect everyone if the good people kept the goodness to themselves and did not enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. That is the tafsir of the ayah. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And fear a fitna, a trial, a tribulation, a catastrophe, a disaster, which affects not in particular only those of you who wrong, but it may afflict all the good and the bad people, and know that Allah is severe in punishment. Allah Ta'ala sent 2 angels to destroy a township. This took place before the Prophet Muhammad was born. When they went to the township, they found a man praying in the temple. They went back to Allah and said, how can we destroy the township? We found a man praying in the temple. Allah said, go back and destroy the township, including that man, because he didn't enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. The Prophet Muhammad said, not once did he ever frown. Listen to what the Prophet said. Not once did he ever frown when he saw the people dabbling in their haram. Not once did he frown when he saw the people dabbling in their haram. Then again in Ma'idah 60, Allah told us a story. Some Jews who lived in the time of David, they were told not to work on a Saturday, and they set the fish net catching the fish on Saturday. When the Jews were told to stop working on a Saturday, they said, we do not work, the fish net catches the fish on our behalf. The Jews, they like to pull stunts on Allah. A Jew is always trying to pull stunts on Allah. So Allah told you about their plight, their predicament in Surah Ma'idah verse 60. قُلْ هَلْ أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِشَرٍّ مِّن ذَلِكَ. Say, O Muhammad, to the people of the scripture, shall I inform you of something worse than that, regarding the recompense from Allah? Those Jews who incurred the curse of Allah and His wrath, and those of whom some He transformed into monkeys and swine, and those who worship Tawhut, the false deities. Such are worse in rank on the day of resurrection. In the hellfire they will be, and far more astray from the right path in the life of this world. So Allah Ta'ala is hereby telling you that the Jews who lived in the time of David, they used to set the fish net, catching the fish, working on a Saturday. They broke the Sabbath. But they were told to stop, and they did not. So a wall was built between the Jews who decided to uphold the Sabbath and the Jews who decided to break the Sabbath. After some time elapsed and they looked over the wall, what did they see? Apes and swine. I was taught in my English class in Jamaica that the word swine doesn't take an S. The word swine is like the word sheep, it doesn't take an S. That's what my English teacher taught me in Jamaica. So the translator made a mistake and write the word swines. It doesn't take an S. Who did Allah turn into swine? The Jews who broke the Sabbath were turned into swine. Now who did Allah turn into monkeys? The ones who saw them breaking the Sabbath and they did not enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. So when you refuse to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, you gain the anger of Allah and His curse. Like these Jews I told you about in Ma'idah 60. Now why did Allah choose swine to turn them into? Because they are shameless. The Jews are shameless. Look at their atrocities against the Muslims of Palestine, the siege on Gaza, and they don't care about world opinion. The Jews are shameless people. Swine, they are shameless. So since you are shameless, Allah said, okay, I'll turn you into swine. You deserve to be turned into a swine because you're shameless. And who did Allah turn into monkeys? The ones who saw them break in the Sabbath and didn't stop them. By the way, people who eat swine, they are also shameless. That's why they do wife swapping. And they go to nudist camps. So to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is a religious duty. And when you fail to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, you gain Allah's curse, and Allah Ta'ala shall visit you with His punishment in this life and the next life. Now, what kind of sin are you supposed to forbid? The person taking notes, what type of munkar are you supposed to forbid? The word munkar means a sin. What kind of munkar are you supposed to forbid? Okay, shukran. The munkar that you are supposed to forbid is the open sin, not the one which is done secretly behind closed doors. Therefore, the sin that you forbid is the open sin. Therefore, you are not allowed to spy on the Muslims, because Allah said, do not spy on each other. Surah 49 verse 12. You are not allowed to spy on the Muslims to collect evidence against them, claiming that you are enjoining the right and forbid the wrong. This is the open sin, not the one done behind closed doors. Therefore, you are not allowed to spy on Muslims. You are not allowed to spy on the Muslims and then say, the reason why I spy on the Muslims is because I am enjoining the right and forbid the wrong. Ibn Mas'ud was a qadi, a judge, because he was a scholar of the Sahabas. A man brought a man to him and alcohol was dripping from his beard. In some hadith, alcohol could be detected from his beard. Ibn Mas'ud said, we were commanded not to spy on each other, and he threw the case out of court. It has been reported that a man was brought before Abdullah ibn Mas'ud because he was a judge in the courthouse, because his beard was giving out smell of wine. Ibn Mas'ud said, we have been prohibited from spying on Muslims and finding faults with them. But if something is clear to us, then we punish for it. Listen to what Ibn Mas'ud said. If something is clear to us, we punish for it. So the munkar that you punish for is the open sin, the one which is done openly. But as for what a man does behind closed doors in his house, you are not allowed to spy on him and then bring him forward to the Muslim judge and say, punish him. You can't do that. Because what takes place behind closed door in a man's house, that's between him and the law. He's not an open sinner, he's a secret sinner. Some people behind closed doors, they snort cocaine. Some people behind closed doors, they smoke weed, marijuana, cannabis, ganja. Another man behind closed doors, he's having sex with his maid, the household maid. Another man behind closed doors might be watching porn. Another man behind closed doors might be drinking alcohol. People get up to bad things behind closed doors. But they did not do it openly in front of the people. That's behind closed doors in his own private domain. Therefore, you are not allowed to spy on the Ummah and then bring them forward to the Muslim judge and say, punish him, I caught him doing this, I caught him doing that, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that. Because when Ibn Mas'ud was a judge, a man brought another man in front of him because alcohol was detected from his beard. In some hadith, alcohol was dripping from his beard. Ibn Mas'ud threw the case out of court and did not take action against the drinker because he said, we were commanded not to spy on the Muslims. Surah Hujurat verse 12, وَلَا تَجَسُّسُوا, and don't spy on each other. So when we speak about enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong, the munkar, the wrong that you forbid, is the one which is done openly, not the one which the man does secretly in his bedroom behind closed doors. That is between him and Allah, because he is not doing it openly to advertise his haram in front of the weak Muslims. That's between him and Allah, and we leave him to Allah. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, if you see an evil action, stop it with your hands. If you don't have the power to do so, condemn it with your tongue. And if you don't have the power to do so, because if you speak out, you can be killed. This means if you lipstick, the man is wearing lipstick and mascara, and he walks around with a lady's handbag. If you didn't hate that munkar in your heart, you are not a Muslim. Because in another hadith, the Prophet said, if you didn't hate the munkar in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman. Bring me the hadith where the Prophet said, if you don't hate the munkar, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman. It is narrated on the authority of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ observed, never a prophet had been sent before me by Allah towards his nation who had not among his people disciples and companions who followed his ways and obeyed his command. Then there came after them their successors, who said whatever they did not practice, and practiced whatever they were not commanded to do. He who strove against them with his hand was a believer. He who strove against them with his tongue was a believer. And he who strove against them with his heart was a believer. And beyond that there is no faith, even to the extent of a mustard seed. Jazakallah for the hadith. This is the exact hadith I was hoping to find. So if you don't hate the munkar in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman. To hate it in your heart is fardul ayn. I repeat, to hate the munkar in your heart, that is fardul ayn. But to change it with your hands, that is the duty of the people who are in power. The Amir, the Umara, and the Ulama, the leaders and the scholars. Because they are the people with the power to change it with their hands. So the leaders, they change the munkar with their hands, and the scholars, they condemn the munkar with their tongue. And the layman who has no power, it is fardul ayn on him to hate the munkar in his heart. Therefore, as for denying and hating the munkar in your heart, no Muslim is excused from that obligation. Not even a layman. No Muslim on the face of the earth is excused from the obligation of hating the munkar in his heart, because the Prophet said if you don't hate it in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman in your heart. The ulama are required to condemn the munkar with their tongues. The Islamic scholars, the sheikhs, the maulanas, the muftis, the imams of the masajid, they are required to condemn it with their tongue. The rulers of the Islamic State, they are required to change the munkar with their hands. The greatest munkar is shirk. Shirk is demonstrable in many Muslim countries, because the grave worshippers that are found in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Africa, they are committing shirk and they are idol worshippers. The Holy Prophet classified the grave as an idol that people worship beside Allah. Therefore, there is no difference between a goofy Sufi, a Brahmin who worships the grave of Muhammad, and a Buddhist who worships the statue of Buddha. And the Rasul said, "O Allah, do not allow my grave to become an idol that people worship." The Prophet classified the grave as an idol that people worship. Therefore, a Bareilly, a grave worshipper in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or in Africa, who is worshipping graves, there is absolutely no difference between him and the Buddhist who worships Buddha. They are both idol worshippers. And the greatest munkar is shirk. When the Mujahideen took over northern Mali, Timbuktu, they demolished 300 graves that the Muslims used to worship beside Allah in Mali. And there was an outcry, especially from France. There was an outcry. Do you know why they demolished the graves that the people worship beside Allah? Because Allah said, وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةً. Fight them till there is no more fitna, until Allah alone is worshipped. Surah Anfal, verse 39. All the scholars of tafsir said the word fitna that Allah is speaking about in Anfal 39 is the fitna of shirk. Indeed, shirk is the biggest munkar. And because shirk is the biggest munkar under the heavens, the Holy Prophet said, "Umirtu an uqatil an-nas hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah." I was commanded to fight against people until they testify that nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah. Another munkar is democracy. Democracy is the greatest shirk. That's the other munkar that you need to condemn and fight against with your hands and condemn with your tongue and hate in your heart. If you don't hate democracy in your heart, you are not a Muslim, because you can't be a Muslim until you reject the Taghut, until you reject the munkar. So the munkar that the Prophet is speaking about, it comes in the form of speech, actions, and creed. Speech, deed, and creed. The munkar that the Rasul spoke about in this hadith, it comes in the form of speech, deed, and creed. Other munkars include clubs, pubs, casinos, brothels, crack houses, alcoholic factories. I repeat, other munkars include clubs, pubs, casinos, brothels, alcoholic factories, and crack houses. The layman who has no power to change a munkar is required to hate it in his heart, and no Muslim is excused from this obligation, not even the layman. It is not permissible for a Muslim who has the power to stop the munkar with his hand to lower his required duty and condemn it with his tongue. I repeat, it is not permissible for a Muslim who has the power to stop the munkar with his hands to lower his expectation and condemn it with his tongue. It is not permissible for a Muslim who has the power to condemn it with his tongue to lower his requirement and hate it in his heart and didn't speak out. All the scholars of Islam who gave the sharh for this hadith, they say, if you have the power to stop the munkar with your hand, you are not allowed to condemn it with your tongue. And if you have the power to condemn the munkar with your tongue, you are not allowed to be satisfied with just hating it in your heart and didn't speak out. You are not allowed, you have to deal with the munkar the way the Prophet arranged it in this hadith. The only people who are allowed to be satisfied with hating the munkar in their hearts are those who are powerless to stop the munkar. They have no power to stop the munkar, they are allowed to hate it in their hearts. But if you have the power to stop it with your hand, you are not allowed to hate it in your heart and be satisfied with that. Because according to Sharia law, whenever you are commanded to do something in Islam, you have to do it to the best of your ability. The evidence is Surah 64 verse 16. The evidence, Surah 64 verse 16. In Surah 64 verse 16, you were commanded by Allah Ta'ala to fear Allah to the best of your ability, to your utmost. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whenever you are commanded by Allah to do something, you should do it to the best of your ability. So if you see the munkar and you have the power to stop it with your hands, it is haram for you not to stop it with your hands, just to hate it in your heart and feel comfortable with that level of Iman. You are not allowed to stop at the third level when you have the power to change the munkar on the first level, which is the highest level, and that is to change it with your hands. Even the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ أَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ وَمَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whenever I come, whatsoever I have forbidden you, avoid, and whatsoever I command you to do it as much as you can. This is a hadith of the Prophet. We are obliged to stick to the order which is laid out by the Prophet, to stick to the format. What the scholars say, the ones who explain this hadith, we, the Ummah of Muhammad, we are obliged to stick to the format laid out by the Prophet in the hadith. And that is, you stop the munkar with your hands. And if you have no power, you speak out with your tongue. You condemn the munkar. And if you have no power, because in some countries, if you speak out, you disappear. Before the uprising in Syria, if you speak out and condemn the Ba'athist party, the Bashar al-Assad party, Ba'athism, you disappear and nobody from your family has a clue where you are.
So if you don't have the power to speak out because you will disappear, hate the munkar in your heart. And the Prophet said, if you don't hate the munkar in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman. The Rasul said, and beyond that, there's not a mustard seed of Iman. On many occasions, you heard the story of Surah Buruj, the boy and the king. The boy, a very intelligent boy, the king commanded that they should teach him magic. So the magician, when he died, somebody will take over. On his way to learning the magic, he passed by a pious Muslim living in a cave. And this Muslim was a scholar. If he is a scholar, why did he separate himself from the society and live in a cave? Because the king was brutal and wicked. And he realized if he should speak out against the munkar, the king will chop off his head. So he was terrified of being a wicked scholar, a corrupted scholar. So he didn't want to go to his palace and justify the munkar, because he doesn't want to give account for that on the day of judgment. So what did he do? He separated himself and he went and lived in a cave. Surah Buruj. So whenever you're a scholar and you are living in a society and you know that if you speak out, your head will be chopped off, it's possible for you to take a stance in which you separate yourself from society, like this man in Surah Buruj who went and lived in a cave. But for you to forget your Islamic knowledge, you throw your Islamic knowledge behind your back. Then you mix with the king and you justify the munkar. The king makes it permissible for people to raise pigs, claiming it's a tourist country and we need tourism, and tourists like to eat pig in their hotels. And the king allows factories of alcohol to be erected in the country, claiming we need tourists, they need it to drink in their hotels. And the king allows casino in the country because the king says we need foreign exchange. And casino is a money spinner. It brings in the foreign exchange. And the king allows and he allows and he allows and he allows. Now you are an Islamic scholar. Mix with the king. And you justify all the munkar that the king, then you will be remembered in history as a wicked scholar. Now this man in Surah Buruj, he was a scholar. And he realized if he should open his mouth and condemn the munkar, the king is going to chop off his head. So what did he do? He separated himself and he went and lived in a cave. Because he doesn't want to be remembered in history as a wicked scholar. So when you are unable to stop the munkar, do not enter into the palace of the king and justify the munkar. Then you become a wicked scholar. You need to separate yourself from the society if you fear for your life or you fear imprisonment, like the man did in Surah Buruj. Allah Ta'ala spoke about the Munafiqun in Surah Tawbah verse 67. Allah exposed to us the modus operandi of the Munafiqun. Tawbah 67. Allah Ta'ala said that they enjoin the evil and they forbid the good. A'udhu Billah. The Munafiqun, males and females. The Munafiqun, males and females, what did Allah say about them? They enjoin the evil, the munkar, and they forbid the good. A'udhu Billah. That is their modus operandi. Then Allah told you in Tawbah 71 the modus operandi of the sincere believers. So in Tawbah 71, Allah Ta'ala said, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْدٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. They believe in men and women. The believers, men and women, they are friends of each other. They are supporters of each other. They are protectors of each other. They are helpers of each other. What do? They enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Do the exact opposite of the Munafiqun, male and females. That is the modus operandi of the sincere believers. They enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. But the Munafiqs, they enjoin the evil and they forbid what is good. A'udhu billahi minal rajim. the father is the head of the household. Therefore, the father, he has to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong with his wife and kids, because he's responsible for the flock. The Prophet said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. All of you are shepherds, and you are responsible for your flock. The father is the head of the household, and the father is responsible for his flock, to make sure his wife and kids are on deen. Therefore, Surah 66 verse 6. What did Allah say in Surah 66 verse 6? يَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. O believe, save yourselves and your family from the hellfire, whose fuel is men and stones. Surah 66 verse 6. O you believe, save your family from the hellfire, whose fuel is men and stones. This ayah tells you that it is the duty of the father to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong in his household, to make sure his wife and kids are properly on deen in regards to aqidah and fiqh. Then the Rasul said, the youth will never enter the paradise. The bighayrat, the youth. So who is the youth? The bighayrat? A man who doesn't care if his daughter is sleeping around. A man who doesn't care if his wife is having an affair or she leaves the house with no hijab. A man who doesn't care if his daughter leaves the house with no hijab. He doesn't care if his daughter is sleeping around. He say, well, we are living in the UK, we are living in the USA, it's a democracy, there's nothing we can do. She is free to do once. That man is called a youth. And the Rasul said, a youth will never enter the paradise. Who is the youth? The man who allows his family to become corrupted in front of his very eyes because he didn't enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Even though Allah said, oh, you believe, save yourselves and your family from the hellfire, whose fuel is men and stones. And because the man is in charge of his flock in the house, he is the Amir, and he's supposed to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. The Rasul said, command your children to pray when they are 7, and beat them to pray when they are 10, and separate them in their beds. So 7 is the most crucial age in the life of a child. That is when their personality is formed. You give a child 7 years of Islamic upbringing, and the child will hang on to Islam for the rest of their life. The first 7 years is the most important year in the life of every single child. That is when their personality is formed. So because of that, the Rasul said, command them to pray when they are 7, and beat them to pray when they are 10, and separate them in their beds at age 10, because that is when their hormones start to play games with them. So you separate the boys from the girls at age 10. Enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is done from the state level. It is incumbent on the state to get the ulama to admonish the population, the wayward. So if a person step out of line, it is incumbent on the state to get the scholars to advise them, to admonish them, to bring them back to real Islam, because they step out of line, enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. When Ali ibn Abi Talib was the caliph, he encountered the fitna of the Khawarij. And that is a fitna. That is a real fitna. Because they were killing the Muslims and they were leaving alone the kuffar. Before Ali moved against them with an iron fist, he sent Ibn Abbas to debate with them. They told Ibn Abbas they had 3 grudges that they were carrying against Ali. The first grudge, we fought with him at the Battle of the Camel, and he didn't give us concubines. He wanted Muslim women to have sex with. So that's the first grudge. Ibn Abbas said the Prophet's wife Aisha was held captive. Which one of you would like to take her as a concubine? They were checkmated. They hung their heads down in shame. The second grudge, why did Ali wipe out his title? Amir al-Mu'mineen, we gave him our bay'ah. How can he wipe out his title after we gave him our bay'ah? That was a slap in the face for us. Ibn Abbas said, at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet told Ali, one day you'll be forced to scratch out your title, the way I scratch out my title at Hudaybiyah, Rasulullah. So what Ali did was prophesied. The third grudge, why did Ali appoint humans as judges and Allah is the only judge? Ibn Abbas said, Allah told us in Surah Nisa verse 35, if a man is having problems with his wife and you fear they are going to break up, send a judge from his family and send a judge from her family to save the marriage, if you want to save the marriage. If you want Islah. They were checkmated on 3 counts, point by point. 24,000 returned to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and Ali spared their lives. 24,000 returned to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and Ali spared their lives. And those who hung on to their dodgy aqidah and refused to return to real Islam after the Hujjah was established, they were killed by Ali. They were massacred. And this battle is called the Battle of Nahrawan. Now, why did I bring up this story? How is it relevant to the topic? I brought this story up to prove to you that the Amir of the community, the Caliph, or the Amir of the locality, the country, he is responsible for his flock. So it is his duty to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. So if he notices that you have heresy in the community, Zandaka, he has Zandaka in his community. The Zandaka, the heresy, which is dodgy Aqidah, false Aqidah. It's a cancer eating away at the body of the Ummah. So it is the duty of the Caliph or the Amir to move against the Zandaka swiftly, severely, and decisively. Exactly what Ali did. But before he moved against them swiftly, severely, and decisively, he sent Ibn Abbas to debate with them and to checkmate them. When they were checkmated, 24,000 returned to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the proper Islam. Those who refused to return, they were killed. Why? Because once the Hujjah is established, we don't give you the excuse of ignorance. Why Ali massacred them? Because once the Hujjah, the evidence, is established, we no longer give you the excuse of ignorance. Indeed, it's the duty of the Amir, the Caliph, to look after his flock. Because the Rasul said, all of you are shepherds and you are responsible for your flock. So if the Amir realizes that strange ideas emerged in the Ummah as a cancer eating away at the body of the Ummah, it is his duty, the Zandaka, swiftly, severely, and decisively. Exactly what Ali did. Radiallahu anhu. Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Qasri. What do you know about him? Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Qasri. What do you know about him? He was the governor of Iraq. He died 121 AH. He captured Jad ibn Dirham and he arrested Jad ibn Dirham. And when Eid al-Adha came, Eid Kabir, he brought him out and said, people, offer your sacrifice. Your sheep, your goats, your camels, offer your sacrifice. Because I'm going to offer my sacrifice. I'm going to chop off the head of Jad ibn Dirham. Because he said Allah did not take Abraham as a friend, a Khalil. And he said Allah did not speak to Musa. And he chopped off his head in front of all the people, thousands of people on Eid day. He denied Allah's names and attributes. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah said, Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Qasri is one of the real men of this ummah. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah said, Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Qasri was one of the real men of this ummah. Why? Because he was swift, severe, and decisive in enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. When you are the Amir, you can't allow dodgy Aqidah to be floating around in your community. Because you are a shepherd, and the Rasul said, all of you are shepherds, and you are responsible for your flock. So you can't have people with dodgy Aqidah teaching the people that Allah did not take Abraham as a friend, and Allah did not speak to Musa. You can't have these Aqidahs. So he captured the man, he kept him in prison, and when Eid came, he took him out of prison, and he said to the people, offer your sacrifice. Because today is Eid, whatever animals you brought to sacrifice, offer your sacrifice, because I am going to offer my sacrifice. I'm going to chop off the head of Jad ibn Dirham, because he said Allah did not take Abraham as his friend, his Khalil, and he claims also that Allah did not speak to Musa. And he chopped off his head in front of all the people who came for Eid, thousands of people. Why did I bring up this topic, this incident, this scenario? To prove to you that you have to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong from the state level. When you are the Amir, you are responsible for your flock. You are not allowed to have dodgy aqidah floating around in your community. You can't. Because on Judgment Day, Allah will say to you, you did not take care of your flock. If the society that you live in is Dar al-Harb, if the society you live in is Dar al-Islam, to enjoy the right and forbid the wrong is done from the state level. I gave you the example of Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu, and I gave you the example of Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Qasri, rahimahullah. I gave you two examples. To enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is done from the state level if it is Dar al-Islam. If the society you are living in is Dar al-Harb, for example, the UK, the USA, these countries are called Dar al-Harb. You can't enjoin the right and forbid the wrong from the state level. You can't kill a gay. If you go to the UK or the USA and kill a gay, they'll lock you up and throw you the key. You'll never see daylight again. You will never see daylight again. So when you are living in Dar al-Harb, you have to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong in the form of dawah, with conferences, symposiums, seminars, courses, halqas, study circles, dars, durus. That's why you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong in Dar al-Harb. And even if you are living in the UK or the USA and you hand out leaflets, and on the leaflet you say, we kill the homosexuals, according to Sharia law, we kill the homosexuals, they're going to lock you up and charge you for incitement to murder, and they give you 7 years imprisonment for inciting the murder of the gay citizens of the society. In Burnley, 3 members of Al-Muhajirun were locked up for giving out such leaflets. In Burnley. Maybe an admin can bring the link. So even in Dar al-Harb, where they say it's a democracy, freedom of speech, it's a sham, it's a big lie. When the people of the UK and the USA say freedom of speech, it's a democracy. It's freedom of speech for the prostitutes, lesbians, homosexuals, bisexuals, the BNP, the Ku Klux Klan, the White Wolves, the EDL. They have freedom of speech. Not you. Impossible. Not you, the Muslim. All the scums of the earth have freedom of speech in Dar al-Harb. But not you, the Muslim. They won't allow you to come to their country and enjoy freedom of speech and use their laws to spread Islam. They won't allow that. And according to Sharia law, you are not allowed to implement the hudud in Dar al-Harb, the had, to cut the hand of the thief, to give a man 100 lashes for zina, to stone the adulterer to death, to throw the homosexual from a height until he dies. You can't implement these laws in Dar al-Harb because they are called the hudud, the Islamic capital punishment. All you can do in Dar al-Harb is to preach Tawheed, not Sharia. Not the hudud, just the Tawheed. So when you are living in Dar al-Islam, to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is done from the state level, and that you have the backing of the state. When you are living in Dar al-Harb, in which the government hates Islam, to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong has to be done on an individual level, in the form of dawah. In the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a masjid was built. It's called Masjid Dirar. Allah spoke about Masjid Dirar in Tawbah 107. Allah said some people they build a masjid to spread a false version of Islam. Masjid Dirar. The Prophet burnt it down, the one that was built in Medina. What happened? The Prophet burnt it down, that masjid. Masjid Dirar. As for those who put up a masjid by way of harming and disbelief and to disunite the ummah, the believers, and as an outpost for those who war against Allah and His Messenger aforetime. They will indeed swear that their intention is nothing but good. Now, this masjid that Allah is speaking about in Tawbah 107, the Prophet burnt it down. In the UK and the USA, 99% of the masjids is Masjid Dirar. And you can't burn them down. You can't burn them down claiming you are enjoying the right and forbidding the wrong. If you're going to burn down the Masjid Dirar that are found in the UK, the USA, Australia, Canada, France, you're going to burn down 99% of the masjids. Because the Brawi is Masjid Dirar, the Shiite is Masjid Dirar, the Saudi Salafi is Masjid Dirar, because they don't reject the Taghut and they spy for the Kuffar. The Goofy Sufi is Masjid Dirar. You're going to end up burning down 99% of the masjids. Do you think they're going to allow you to come to the UK, the USA, and have the Aqidah of the Mujahideen in their territory? Are you for real? Are you crazy? You have the Aqidah of the Mujahideen in their country? They won't allow you in their country with that Aqidah? 99% of the masjids is Masjid Dirar. So if you're going to do what the Prophet did and burn it down, you're going to have to burn down 99% of the masjid in your country. And that's not possible. So when you are living in Darul Harb, to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is different from living in Darul Islam. In Darul Islam is done from the state level. In Darul Harb it is done on a one-to-one basis on the individual level, not on the state level, because the state is a satanic state. It is Darul Harb, and they want to spread filth and corruption in the land. They won't allow you to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong the way you do it in the Islamic State. They promote kufr. In France, the government is going to fund a masjid, the first gay masjid in Europe. Didn't you know that? I hope you know what is going on in the world. I hope you are not a dinosaur. Do you pay attention to current events? Don't you know in France they are going to open a gay masjid? An Algerian Muslim is married to a black man from South Africa. He went to South Africa and he caught AIDS. The man who wants to open the masjid, he went to South Africa and he caught AIDS, an Algerian. They want to open the first gay masjid in Europe, in France. And the government is going to sponsor it. Didn't I tell you a million times in this room that if you tell a gay can be a Muslim, they are going to open the pink mosque? Didn't I tell you that? When did you come to this room and I predicted something and it didn't come to pass? You tell me. Tell me, when did you come to this room and I predicted something and it didn't come to pass? I want to know. Didn't I tell you, if you say to the gay you can be a Muslim, they're going to clap their hands and smile and be happy, and then they say, okay, we're going to open the pink mosque. I was on tour of South Africa. I've toured 30 countries in the world. So I know the current events on the ground. Many of you say, oh, Sheikh Faisal, you're too harsh. A gay can be a Muslim. Who told you a gay can be a Muslim? Why did the caliphs stone them to death and burn their bodies and refuse to do janazah over them? That's my question to you. Why did the caliphs stone them to death, burnt their bodies and refused to pray janazah over them if they were Muslims? We pray janazah over every Muslim who died. Why the caliphs didn't pray janazah over the gay? That's my question to you. Please answer my question, because you think a gay can be a Muslim. You can't answer because you are checkmated. You want to incorporate into Islam homosexuality the way they have thousands of gay churches in America. Is that what you want to happen to Islam? Is that what you want? And the Rasul said you'll follow the Jews and the Christians inch by inch, step by step. If they should enter inside a lizard hole, you'll enter into it after them. That's what the Prophet said. You'll follow the Jews and the Christians inch by inch, step by step. If they should enter the lizard hole, you'll enter into it after them. There are thousands of gay churches in America. Now you want to establish a gay mosque in France? Where is the link about the gay mosque? Did anybody find the link? Didn't you know that they are planning to establish a gay mosque? Do you pay attention to fiqh al-waqi', the fiqh of current events? Okay, the next chapter is the required characteristics of the one who enjoins the right and forbids the wrong. Okay, you have found the link, shukran.
It's in the Guardian newspaper. that newspaper is left wing. The next chapter, the required characteristics of the person who enjoins the right and forbids the wrong. The required characteristics of the person who enjoins the right and forbids the wrong. The required characteristics of the person who enjoins the right and forbids the wrong. Okay, shukran. The first characteristic is he should have ilm. And the evidence is Surah 12, 108. You can't be enjoined the right and forbid the wrong, and you are a jahil. So Allah said, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Say, this is my way, I invite to Allah, the oneness of Allah, and whosoever follows me. Now, I invite to the oneness of Allah with basira, with sure knowledge. Look at the ayah. I invite to the oneness of Allah. I invite to Allah with what? With sure knowledge. I and whosoever follows me. And glorified, exalted is Allah. I am not of the mushrikeen, those who ascribe partners unto Him. So the very first characteristic is sure knowledge. You can't be a jahil inviting to Islam. You can't be a jahil enjoining the right and forbid the wrong. You'll take matters into your own hands. The second characteristic is humility. Luqman the wise, he was grooming his son, how to turn him into a da'i. Luqman the wise was grooming his son to teach him how to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Surah 31 verse 18. He said to his son, وَلَا تَسَعِرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرْحًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَلٍ فَخُورٍ. And turn not your face away from men with pride, nor walk with insolence through the land. Verily Allah doesn't like each proud, arrogant, and boastful person. Surah 31 verse 18. Surah Luqman verse 18. So humility is the second quality you need when you are enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. What's the point? You are a sheikh and you are not approachable. Nobody can approach you. Your character is so evil. People are afraid to approach you to ask you a question. You are not humble. You show off with your knowledge. So you've studied for many, many years and you can't benefit the ummah because you are not approachable. The third quality is bravery. You should be brave when you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. The Prophet said, let none of you disgrace himself. They said, O Messenger of Allah, how can we disgrace ourselves? The Prophet said, you saw something haram. You saw the munkar and you didn't stop the munkar. You didn't speak out against the munkar. You will say, Oh Allah, I was afraid of the people. Allah will say, I am the one you are supposed to be afraid of. Okay, bring me the hadith which I just quoted. Let none of you disgrace himself or degrade himself, belittle himself. Yes, this is the hadith. Let none of you disgrace himself, belittle himself. In another hadith, the greatest jihad is to speak the truth in front of a tyrannical ruler. The greatest jihad is to speak the truth in front of a tyrannical ruler. One day, the Muslims conquered a country and they brought back a very, very pretty girl. And they said, this girl is a gift for the Caliph, Muawiyah. The best jihad is to speak the truth in front of a tyrannical ruler. This Sahaba, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he is the 7th most prolific narrator of Hadith. We told you that, and he is the Sahaba. We are now studying his Hadith. (1,170 Hadith he narrated). They conquered a land and they brought back a very, very pretty girl and they said, we are going to give her to the Caliph Muawiyah as a gift, as a concubine. They took her to the palace of Muawiyah and they lifted her dress up. Muawiyah was the one who lifted her dress up to look at her leg. Then he said, she's too young for me, give her to my son Yazid. A scholar was sitting with Muawiyah and the scholar said, that girl is haram for Yazid. Muawiyah said, why?
The scholar said, because you saw her leg and you are the father of Yazid. So they have to give the girl to somebody else. So this scholar, he enjoined the right and forbid the wrong even in front of Muawiyah. The hadith I just quoted can be found in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. I don't know if you have it on their files. According to my studies in university, the hadith I just quoted is in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. I don't know if you can find it. Anyway, the fourth quality you need is hikmah. The fourth quality you need when you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong is what? Hikmah, wisdom. Because Allah said in Surah 16, 125, Ud'u ila sabil rabbik bil hikmah. Surah 16, 125, call to the way of your Lord with hikmah. Hikmah is to do the right and say the right things at the right time, at the right place, and in the right manner. That's the definition of hikmah. To say and do the right things at the right time, at the right place, and in the right manner. Invite mankind, O Muhammad, to the way of your Lord with hikmah, with wisdom, divine inspiration, and the Quran, and fair preaching, beautiful preaching, and argue with them in a way that is better. So, hikmah is the fourth quality you need as a person who is a da'i, who enjoins the right and forbids the wrong. The fifth quality you need is sabr, patience. Luqman the wise, when he was grooming his son to be a da'i, to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. Surah 31 verse 17. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Bear with patience whatever befalls you. Verily, these are some of the important commandments ordered by Allah with no exemption. Surah 31 verse 17. Bear with patience whatever befalls you. Have sabr. All the prophets who were successful, the characteristic they all had was sabr. And bear with patience whatever befall you. Verily, these are some of the important commandments ordered by Allah with no exemption. What commandment? The commandment of sabr. You need to have sabr because people are addicted to their evil and corrupted desires. It's difficult for people to change. A man came to the Prophet and said, "O Messenger of Allah, permit me to commit zina." If the Prophet didn't have sabr, he said, chop off his head. But the Prophet said to the man, "Would you like somebody to commit zina with your mother?" He says, "No." Your sister, your daughter, your aunt? He kept saying no. He said, likewise, the men in the community, they don't want you to commit zina with their mothers and their daughters and their sisters. After that, the man hated zina. The sixth characteristic you need is to practice what you preach. You can't tell the people not to drink alcohol and then you drink it. You can't do that. Not to commit zina, you commit zina. You can't do that. And as a da'i, you have to be careful. People would like you to drink alcohol and commit zina, so that on a Friday you cannot take the mic and preach against zina in the masjid. That's what they want. They would like for you to commit zina because they are committing zina. So they want you to commit zina, so that on a Friday you cannot take the mic and preach against zina. So you have to be careful not to suffer a relapse as a da'i. You can't suffer a relapse because you have to enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. But the people will be happy for you to suffer a relapse so that you lose your moral authority. So you can't tell them what to do anymore because you and them are on the same even keel. Number 6, practice what you preach. That's what I said. Because Allah said in Baqarah 44, you enjoin righteousness upon others and you yourself fail to practice it. Surah Baqarah verse 44. I repeat, the people would like you to suffer a relapse and commit zina, so that on a Friday you cannot preach against it in the masjid. You and them are on the same even keel. Maybe they want you to drink alcohol as well, because they are drinking it. Maybe they want you to smoke ganja, because they're smoking it. So you can't preach against it on a Friday in the masjid. That's what they want. They want you and them to be on the same even keel. That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable. Surah 61 verse 2. O you believe, why do you say that which you do not do? Surah 61 verse 2. O you believe, why do you say that which you do not do? It is the most disgusting thing to say what you do not do. You have to be careful. People want you to suffer a relapse so that you can't enjoy the right and forbid the wrong. You have lost your moral authority. The seventh and last quality you need is to be kind, to be kind-hearted. Allah told the Prophet, if you are harsh-hearted when the Sahabas disobeyed you at the Battle of Uhud, they would have stopped being your companions. Surah 3:159. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It's by the mercy of Allah that you were patient and kind to your companions, O Muhammad. You had mercy with your companions. If you were harsh-hearted, qalb, they would have stopped being your companions. It was by the mercy of Allah that you, Muhammad, you were soft and gentle when you were correcting your Sahabas when they disobeyed you at the Battle of Uhud. These are the 7 characteristics of those who enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. We should not call al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar fitna. Do you follow? Sometimes when you practice al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, to enjoin the right and to forbid the wrong, the munkar. Munkar means the wrong. People call it fitna. You are causing fitna. How do you answer these people? What's the answer for them? There are people out there, when you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, they say you are causing fitna. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. You say to them, the real fitna is for me to see the munkar and keep quiet about it. By me seeing the munkar and keeping quiet about it, I turn the Muslims into confused.com. Now, how can a scholar see the munkar and keep quiet? Maybe the munkar is not munkar anymore. That's what people think. The munkar is no longer munkar because a scholar saw the munkar and kept quiet. So you say to them, the real fitna is for me to see the munkar and keep quiet about it, not for me to forbid the munkar. So there are many people out there who claim when you enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, the munkar, you are causing fitna. You answer them by saying the real fitna is for me to see the munkar and then keep quiet about it. That's the real fitna. And as I said before, the munkar is speech, deed, and creed. That is the munkar. Speech, deed, and creed, and the worst munkar is shirk. I'll stop here for today and take 5 questions in regards to the shar you have just heard. I'm taking 5 questions in regards to the shar you have just heard in regards to the hadith. He who sees an evil, let him stop it with his hands. If he cannot, let him condemn it with his tongue. If he cannot, let him hate it in his heart. And that is the weakest level of Iman. That's the hadith we have just explained. I'll now stop here and take 5 questions in regards to the shar you have just heard. I have 4 children. I live in the UK. Where can I move to study the deen? Which country? Why don't you try Saudi Arabia? Why don't you try Qatar? Do you have any contacts in these countries? Qatar, Saudi Arabia? You have 4 children. But in Saudi Arabia, they have ageism. Ageism. I don't know if they'll take you once you pass age 25. I got into university age 2021. Egypt, I don't know if you can survive financially in Egypt. I've never been to Egypt to study. I want to visit. The reason why I suggested Saudi Arabia or Qatar is because when you are in a strange country, it's good if life is easy for you. Then life is hard for you. That's double problem. When I was in Saudi Arabia, I didn't miss Jamaica because I was pumped out. They did everything for me to graduate. But for you to be going to a poor country to study Islam where your kids are hungry, you might not succeed. So why don't you go to the Saudi embassy and ask for a scholarship? I said that to a man in this room, and he's now in Mecca studying a white revert. Approached the Saudi embassy and asked him for a scholarship. I gave that suggestion to a white revert. He's now in Mecca studying. He Skyped me with a smartphone from Mecca. And I said, oh, Sheikh Faisal, I took your advice, and look, I'm in Mecca studying. A white Muslim. He was only in Islam for about 2 months. His parents didn't want him to go, but he left. Why don't you approach the Saudi embassy and ask for a scholarship? To send you to a country like Yemen, which is poor, nobody can help you. I'm not keen on that idea. I was able to graduate from university with flying colors because I had Saudis pampering me. I never suffered want or hunger or my needs were not met. None of those things. But for you to be going to a poor country to study Islam with your 4 kids, I'm not keen on that idea. That's my opinion. You can ask another sheikh. And next question, please. If you see something but is not sure, then
you are responsible for not saying anything or hating it in your heart. If you are not sure about the thing being haram, then you do not do a sin. You only do a sin if you are sure the thing is haram and still you didn't hate it in your heart. You commit a sin when you are sure what you saw was a munkar, a sin, and still you did not hate it in your heart. Don't forget the Prophet said, if you don't hate the evil in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman. We quoted the Hadith and the admin brought the Hadith as well. Authentic 35 brought the Hadith. That if you didn't hate the munkar in your heart, you don't even have a mustard seed of Iman in your heart. Because after that, there is no Iman. If you are sure it's a sin, you didn't do a wrong. You only did a wrong when you realize it's a sin, but still you didn't hate it in your heart. And he who strove against them with his heart was a believer, and beyond that, there is no faith even to the extent of a mustard seed. You have no choice, you have to hate the munkar in your heart. You have no choice, you have to reject the Taghut. What is Taghut? All false deities. That is Taghut. You can't be a Muslim until you reject the Taghut. It's unfortunate, some of you claim to be Muslim, yet you are in bed with the Taghut. You have to reject the Taghut. The Taghut is the false deity. The Taghut is man-made isms and schisms. Every man-made ism and schism is Taghut. Taghut is kafir institutions like the Freemasons and NATO, IMF, the United Nations. Kafir institution is Taghut. The Taghut is the kafir courthouse. The Taghut is the kafir army. And Allah said, those who believe they fight for Allah, and those who disbelieve they fight for the Taghut. Surah Nisa, verse 76. The Taghut is an icon for a false religion. Like Mother Teresa was a Taghut. Why? Because she was an icon for a false religion. Louis Farrakhan is a Taghut. Why? Because he's an icon for a false religion. I'm taking 5 questions. Where the others? Taghut is man-made ism and schism. Taghut is a false religion. Taghut is the icon of the false religion. Taghut is the kafir courthouse. Taghut is the kafir army. That's why Allah said, those who believe they fight for Allah, and those who disbelieve they fight for the sake of the Taghut. Nisa 76. A false religion is Taghut, or the icon for the false religion. Kafir army and the kafir courthouse. The evidence for the kafir courthouse being the Taghut is Nisa 60. You are not allowed to go to the kafir courthouse for judgment and shun Sharia law. Yes, Nisa 76, Allah said the kafir army is Taghut. And Nisa 60, Allah said the kafir courthouse is the Taghut. Nisa 60. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ يَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَحَاكَمُوا إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ وَقَدْ أُمِرُوا أَن يَكْفُرُوا بِهِ. Have you not seen those hypocrites who claim that they believe in what was sent down to you, O Muhammad, and what came down before your time? But they go with their disputes to the Taghut, the kafir judges, while they were ordered by Allah to reject faith in the Taghut, the kafir judges. Those who do not judge by what Allah revealed, such are the kafirun. You cannot go to the kafir courthouse for judgment and shun the Sharia court. If you do that, you are an idol worshipper. You are like the man who bows down to idols. Who said that? Allama Shinkaiti in his book Adwal Bayan, volume 7, page 162. Adwal Bayan, volume 7, page 162. If you go to the kafir courthouse for judgment and shun the Sharia court, you are an idol worshipper. You are like the man who bows down to idols. Why? Because Tawheed Hakimiyya is the twin half of Tawheed Ibadah. Tawheed Hakimiyya is the twin half of Tawheed Ibadah. So when you go to the kafir courthouse for judgment, you are like a man who is bowing down to idols. Adwa al-Bayan, volume 7, page 162. I'm taking 5 questions. Where the others? I saw a video today. They call themselves Muslim Bridges. They say in their propaganda video that people of the book, the modern Christians, Jews, those who believe no fear or grief shall come over them, and they will go to paradise. Their sheikh isn't Islam, they only accept the religion for Allah. Then what do we say about such Muslims who are basically deceiving the kuffar, giving them false hope to go to paradise? The answer to that question is Surah 98 verse 6, where Allah said, these people are very, very easy to refute, and you refute them with 98 verse 6. Allah said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا
أُولَٰئِكُمْ شَرُّ الْبَرِيَّةِ. Those who reject faith from among the Jews and the Christians and the pagans, they shall abide in hellfire forever, and they are the worst of created things. So these people are very, very easy to refute, and you refute them with Surah 98, verse 6. So those people who reject Muhammad, Jews and Christians, and they call him a false prophet, Jews and Christians recently, they are referred to as the worst of created things. Shalbariya, Surah verse 6. The ayah that they quote that says that the Jews and the Christians will have their reward with their Lord, the ayah is talking about Jews and Christians who live in the time of Moses and Jesus, and they followed the teachings of Moses and Jesus. Not the Christians of today who reject Muhammad. And they are Murji'ah. They quote Surah Baqarah 62 as evidence. Allah was speaking about Jews and Christians who lived in the time of Moses and Jesus, and they believe in the Prophet of their day, and they worship Allah alone. They will have their reward with their Lord. As for the Jews and Christians who live in our time today, and they rejected Muhammad and call him a false prophet, their destiny is the hellfire to abide forever. What's the evidence? The evidence is Surah 98, verse 6. If you don't believe in Muhammad, your destiny is in hellfire to abide forever, and you are the worst of created things. Now let me see you refute my evidence, which is what? Surah 98, verse 6. I want you to refute. It's impossible. I've given you evidence from Quran, now I bring you evidence from Sunnah, and this is found in Sahih Muslim. The Prophet said, وَالَذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِي لَا يَسْمَعْ بِي يَهُودِي أو نَصْرَانِي ثُمَّ مَاتَ وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِي إِلَّا دَخَلَ النَّارِ. By Allah, in whose hand is my soul, any Jew or Christian who heard about me, Muhammad, and then died rejecting faith in me, such a person shall be in hellfire to abide forever. Sahih Muslim, bring me the Hadith. So all the Christians and Jews today who reject Muhammad, their destiny shall be in hellfire to abide forever, based upon this Hadith found in Sahih Muslim. And to confirm this Hadith is Surah 98, verse 6. Allah said they are the worst of created things, because they reject Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next question, please. It appears if we have no more questions. In that case, I close the dars. Or there's another question. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. We're going to study Deen in the Arabian Peninsula with the intention of never leaving there. Is considered Hijrah. It is considered Hijrah, but if you study Islam, shouldn't you come back to teach the people? It is considered Hijrah because it's better to live among the Arabs than to live among the black and white kuffar of the West. Because these black and white kuffar of the West that I see here, they are the armpit of humanity. The best treatment I got was from the Arabs in Saudi Arabia, and the worst treatment I got was from the black and white kuffar of the West. They are the armpit of humanity. So it will be considered Hijrah, because it's better to live among the Arabs than to live among the black and white kuffar in the West, who are nothing but the armpit of humanity. Islam is better than the West. The West is Dar al-Harb. But I think if you study Islam, you should come back to the West to teach it. The final Hijrah is to an Islamic state when it is available. The final Hijrah is to an Islamic state when one is available. Assalamu alaikum. Should a Muslim man prefer to marry a born Muslim woman rather than converting a Kafir woman? Some reverts are good Muslims. I met some very good reverts in this room. And some born Muslims can be not so good Muslim. I met a born Muslim who comes to Paltalk to brag about having Jewish boyfriends, a Turkish born Muslim. So this question, you take every individual on their own merit. Not every revert is good. Not every born Muslim is bad. Not every born Muslim is bad. Some born Muslims are good. Some reverts are hypocrites. Look at the Saudi Salafis. They are black reverts. They're very evil. They're fake Muslims, but they're reverts. So not every revert is good. The white Muslims will become goofy Sufis. They're reverts. Whites are attracted to Sufism, and blacks are attracted to Saudi Salafism. Not every revert is good. You take every individual on their own merit. You cannot generalize and say that every revert is bad or every revert is good. You can't generalize and say that every born Muslim is bad or every born Muslim is good. You take every individual on their own merit. Look at Maryam Jamila, a white revert, a Jewish revert. She has done a lot for Islam. She has done a lot for Islam. Maryam Jamila. She died recently, age 80 in Pakistan. So you take every individual on their own merit and you treat people according to how they treat the deen. And those who are good in deen, you give them the benefit of the doubt and you treat them well. And those who play with the deen, you make bara from them. In life, you take every individual on their own merit. It appears as if you are in negotiation with a Kafir woman to convert her to Islam. And it appears as if you are attracted to her and you'd like to marry her. Well, I do not know this woman personally, so I can't tell you if it's a good idea to marry her. All I can say is that if you see in her signs of sin, then you can marry her. If the marriage doesn't work, you can always divorce. Divorce is halal. People make a big issue about divorce. Divorce is a contract like every other contract. If things are not working out, you can annul the contract and move on. Sahabas got divorced. I don't know why you make a big issue about divorce. If things are not working out, you can divorce. So this woman who you are trying to convert, if you detect in her sincerity, you can marry her. Put your trust in Allah and marry her. Marriage is like taking a plane. When you get married, it's like boarding a plane. The plane might arrive in the next airport or the plane may crash. That's what marriage is. It's like taking a plane. The marriage might succeed or the marriage might fail. When you board up, arrive at the next airport, or the plane might crash in the sea and you disappear in the sea, in the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. That's what marriage is. It's just like taking a plane. So this woman, if you detect in her sincerity, you can say Bismillah and marry her and put your trust in Allah. But to say it's better to marry a born Muslim or a revert, I cannot say that it's better because each individual is on their own merit. Not every revert is good. Not every born Muslim is bad. That was the last question. I close. I'd like to thank Authentic Tawhid 5 for bringing the Hadith Hujjah and Authentic Tawhid 7 and 3 for bringing the Quranic Hujjah. And Authentic 38 for the notes. I'd like to thank Authentic Tawhid 3 for certain donations for the da'wah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.